Chapter 1. The Journey Begins. Hi, I am Natasha, and today I am going to talk about my dream of learning English. But before we start, I want to know why you are learning English. Here are some options. A. To have better job opportunities. B. To communicate with the world. C. To travel. D. Any other reason. E. To access information. Please write your reason in the comments below so we can build a strong learning community together. We all have different reasons for learning English, and by sharing, we can support each other on this journey. Now, let me tell you about my journey. It all began when I was on a plane, heading to a new destination. I was excited, but also a little nervous. Not because of the flight, but because I knew that soon I would need to speak and understand English. I had been learning for a while, but I still struggled to understand when people spoke too fast. As I sat in my seat, a friendly stranger next to me started talking. He smiled and said something, but I couldn't catch all of it. I only understood a few words like flight and New York. The rest? It felt like a blur. Has that ever happened to you? When someone is speaking and you only catch a few words but not the full meaning? Let me know in the comments if you've ever felt like that. The stranger kept talking, and I kept smiling and nodding, pretending I understood more than I really did. Inside, I felt frustrated. I wanted so badly to understand, but the words were coming too fast. In that moment, I remembered a quote by Flora Lewis. Learning another language is not only learning different words for the same things, but learning another way to think about things. That quote made me feel a little better. Learning a new language, especially English, isn't just about words. It's about understanding a new way of thinking and communicating. I realized that it was okay not to understand everything right away. I was still learning, and that was what mattered. As the flight continued, I thought about ways to improve my English. I knew that listening was one of the most important skills. Even if I didn't understand everything, I could try to catch key words and phrases. This is called listening for context. It helps you figure out the main idea of what someone is saying, even if you don't know all the words. Another technique I remembered was shadowing. This is when you listen to someone speak and then try to repeat what they say, copying their pronunciation and rhythm. It's a great way to practice speaking naturally. If you want to try shadowing, I have videos on my channel where you can practice with me. Give it a try. As the flight went on, I reminded myself that learning a language takes time. It's a journey, just like the one I was on. I didn't need to understand everything right now. What mattered was that I kept trying and didn't give up. I was on the path to learning English, and every little bit of practice helped. So, what about you? Have you ever been in a situation where someone spoke English and you struggled to understand? How did it make you feel? Share your experience in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. That's it for today's chapter. Next, I'll tell you about a dream I had during the flight. One where I was learning English and met even more people who spoke in ways I couldn't fully understand. But this dream helped me realize something important about language learning. Chapter 2. The Dream Begins. As the plane continued to fly through the clouds, I started to feel sleepy. Slowly, my eyes closed, and soon I drifted into a deep sleep. That's when my dream began. A dream that felt so real, yet so strange. In this dream, I found myself in a world where everyone spoke English. Everywhere I turned, people were having conversations in English, and I felt the same nervousness I had on the plane. Could I understand them? Could I speak with them? In the dream, I was walking down a busy street. The sun was shining, and there were people all around me speaking quickly. I tried to listen, but it was hard to keep up. They spoke too fast, and the words seemed to blend together, just like on the plane. I felt confused and a little lost. Have you ever felt that way in real life? When people speak English so fast that it's hard to catch anything? Let me know in the comments if this has ever happened to you. As I kept walking, I met a group of people who seemed friendly. They started talking to me, asking questions, but I only caught bits and pieces. Where are you from? What are you doing here? I could understand a few words, but I couldn't answer them well. The words just didn't come to me. It was like I knew what I wanted to say, but the English words were stuck somewhere in my mind. I remembered a famous quote by Ludwig Wittgenstein. "The limits of my language are the limits of my world." In that moment, I realized that my dream was showing me how true that quote was. Because I didn't fully understand English, my ability to communicate and connect with others was limited. But I also knew that if I kept learning, those limits would start to disappear. In the dream, I tried to listen carefully to what people were saying. This is called immersion, surrounding yourself with the language as much as possible. Even if you don't understand everything at first, the more you hear English, the more familiar it becomes. You start to recognize common words and phrases, and slowly, things make more sense. I wanted to remind myself that this was a powerful way to learn. As I continued walking in my dream, I came across a park where people were sitting and chatting in English. I sat on a bench, closed my eyes, and just listened. I didn't try to understand every word, but I focused on the ones I knew. This made me feel more confident, even though I still had a lot to learn. One of the best ways to improve your English is to listen to it regularly. That's why I always recommend watching English videos or listening to podcasts, even if you don't catch everything at first. And don't worry, I've uploaded videos on my channel that are perfect for practicing your listening skills. You can immerse yourself in English and slowly start to understand more and more. In my dream, I continued to listen to the people around me. Their conversations were still a little too fast, but I wasn't discouraged. I reminded myself that learning English is a journey. It takes time, and it's okay not to understand everything right away. What's important is that you keep trying, just like I was doing in my dream. Before I woke up from this dream, I learned something important. Be patient with yourself. Everyone learns at their own pace, and it's normal to feel confused sometimes. But with practice, things get easier. English will start to make more sense, and you will understand more every day. So, have you ever tried immersing yourself in English by listening to people talk or watching English videos? How has it helped you? Share your experience in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you practice listening. Chapter 3: Lost in the Dream. As my dream continued, I found myself in a new place, an even busier part of the city, with tall buildings and people everywhere. Everyone was speaking English, and I was trying so hard to understand. But the words felt like a blur, rushing past me too quickly. I wanted to catch them, but they slipped away, like sand falling through my fingers. I felt lost. In this part of the dream, I walked through crowded streets, hearing English all around me. I stopped to listen to a conversation between two strangers, but they were speaking so fast. I could only catch a few words. Meeting, later, and park. The rest of the words were a mystery to me. Have you ever been in a situation like that where you only catch a few words but not enough to understand the whole conversation? Share your story in the comments below. I kept walking, feeling frustrated. I knew some English, but it didn't seem like enough. Everyone in my dream was speaking so fast that it was hard to follow. At one point, I even tried to join a conversation, but when I opened my mouth to speak, the words wouldn't come out right. I felt embarrassed and unsure of myself. That's when I remembered another great quote by Frank Smith. One language sets you in a corridor for life. Two languages open every door along the way. This reminded me that even though I felt lost now, learning English would eventually open more doors for me. I just had to keep going, even when it was hard. This dream was teaching me that it's okay to feel lost sometimes. It's all part of the learning process. At this point in the dream, I started using a technique that I had learned before: shadowing. When you shadow, you listen to someone speak and then try to repeat what they say, mimicking their tone and speed. I began repeating words I heard from the people around me, quietly to myself. If someone said, "It's a beautiful day," I would whisper, "It's a beautiful day." It felt a little strange at first, but it helped me get used to the rhythm of English. Shadowing is a great way to improve your speaking and listening skills. It helps you practice pronunciation and understand how words flow together in real conversations. If you haven't tried it yet, give it a go. And remember, I have videos on my channel where you can practice shadowing with me. It's a fun and effective way to get better at English. As I walked through the dream, repeating the words I heard, I began to feel a little more confident. I wasn't understanding every word, but I was starting to recognize common phrases. This was progress, even if it felt small. In the dream, I approached a street vendor and tried to ask for directions. The vendor spoke quickly, and I only caught parts of what he said. Go straight, right turn, and 2 blocks. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough for me to understand. Even though I didn't catch every word, I used the ones I knew to fill in the gaps. This is another important technique when learning a language. Focus on the words you understand and use context to guess the rest. By this point, I realized that even though I felt lost at times, I was still learning. Every new word I recognized was a step forward. Every sentence I tried to repeat was practice. Learning English is like putting together a puzzle. You don't have all the pieces at once, but over time the picture becomes clearer. Before I woke up from this part of the dream, I asked myself, what if I keep going, even when I feel lost? The answer was clear. If I keep practicing, I will get better. It might take time, but I'll improve with every conversation, every word, and every effort. Let me ask you, have you ever felt lost in a conversation like you couldn't keep up? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments below. As I woke up, I realized that feeling lost is a natural part of learning. The important thing is to keep moving forward, no matter how difficult it feels. And remember, I've uploaded videos to help you practice shadowing and listening. Check them out if you want to improve your English step by step. Chapter 4: Small Wins in the Dream. As the dream continued, something began to change. After feeling lost and confused for what seemed like a long time, I started to catch more words here and there. Little by little, things began to make sense. I realized that even though I wasn't understanding everything, I was understanding more than before. These small victories made me feel hopeful, and I knew I was on the right track. In the dream, I found myself in a large, beautiful park. People were walking, talking, and laughing, all in English. The words no longer felt like a blur. Instead, I started to recognize familiar phrases. How are you? What a nice day. Let's go for a walk. I wasn't catching every word, but I understood enough to feel like I was part of the conversation. This was one of those small wins that gave me confidence. I walked up to a stranger sitting on a bench and decided to try speaking English. My heart was racing. I didn't know if I could do it. But I took a deep breath and said, "Hi, can you help me find the library?" The stranger smiled and gave me directions. And guess what? I understood almost everything. He said, "Go straight, then turn left. It's 2 blocks away." I couldn't believe it. I had spoken English, and I had understood the response. It was a small moment, but it felt like a big win. Have you ever had a moment like that, where you understood more than you expected? If you've experienced a small win like this, share it in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. Small victories are important when learning English. They remind us that we are improving, even when it feels slow. I remembered a wonderful quote by the Chinese proverb, "To learn a language is to have one more window from which to look at the world." Every word I understood in my dream felt like another window opening. I could see more and more of the world around me through the lens of English. As I walked through the park in my dream, I kept practicing. I said hello to people and asked simple questions. Sometimes I made mistakes, but that was okay. I realized that making mistakes is part of the learning process. Each time I tried, I learned something new. One technique that helped me was repetition. If I heard a new word, I would repeat it to myself over and over until it stuck in my mind. For example, when I asked for directions, I repeated the words straight, left, and blocks to help me remember them. This is a great way to build your vocabulary. If you want to practice this, I've uploaded videos on my channel where we repeat key English phrases together. Repetition helps you remember new words, so make sure to check those videos out. Another important technique I used in the dream was vocabulary building. Whenever I heard a new word, I would try to understand its meaning from the conversation. If I couldn't figure it out right away, I would ask someone or look for clues. In real life, you can do the same. Read signs, menus, or simple texts and try to learn a few new words every day. Over time, your vocabulary will grow, and you'll understand more and more. As the dream went on, I became braver in my conversations. I asked a street vendor for a drink, and while I didn't understand everything he said, I got the main idea. He told me how much it cost and asked if I wanted anything else. I felt proud that I had managed to understand him well enough to respond. This dream taught me something very important. Progress comes in small steps. You don't need to understand everything all at once. Start with a few words, build on them, and slowly, you'll improve. Every little bit helps, and each small win brings you closer to your goal. Before I woke up, I reflected on the journey I was taking. Yes, I had felt lost at the beginning of the dream, but now I was starting to understand and speak more English. Each small win made me feel more confident. I realized that learning English is not about being perfect. It's about making progress, step by step. Have you ever celebrated a small win in your English learning? Maybe you understood a new word or had a conversation that went better than you expected. Tell me about it in the comments. I'd love to hear how you're progressing. As I woke up, I felt a renewed sense of excitement about learning English. I knew that I still had a lot to learn, but I also knew that every small victory was worth celebrating. And remember, I've posted videos that can help you practice vocabulary and repetition, so don't forget to check them out. Chapter 5. The Dream Teaches a Lesson. As my dream continued, I found myself in another part of the city. This time, I wasn't just walking around, I was on a mission. I needed to ask for directions, order food, and even have a simple conversation with a stranger. It felt like I was being tested, but deep down, I knew that each of these small challenges was helping me learn. I approached a man selling maps on the corner of the street. I gathered my courage and asked, "Can you help me find the museum?" He responded quickly, using words I didn't completely understand, but I caught the important parts. Go straight, 2nd Street, and left. I repeated these directions to myself as I walked away. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Have you ever been in a similar situation where you only understood part of the conversation but still managed to get what you needed? Share your experience in the comments below. As I continued my journey in the dream, I realized something important. Learning English wasn't about understanding everything at once. It was about patience and persistence. I had to be patient with myself and trust that with time I would improve. There's a famous quote that says, "Mistakes are proof that you are trying." This was so true for me in the dream. Each time I made a mistake, I learned something new. Each time I tried, I got better. I found myself in a small cafe next. I wanted to order a drink, but the menu was in English, and some of the words were new to me. Instead of feeling frustrated, I asked the person at the counter to explain. "What is this?" I pointed to a word I didn't know. She smiled and explained it to me slowly. This was a big moment for me, asking questions when I didn't understand. It's one of the best techniques for learning a language. If you don't know something, don't be afraid to ask. This part of the dream taught me that asking for help is not a weakness. It's a strength. When you don't understand, it's okay to ask someone to explain. People are often happy to help, and by asking questions, you learn faster. In real life, if you ever find yourself confused or unsure about an English word or phrase, don't hesitate to ask someone for clarification. Another thing I learned in the dream was the importance of practicing short sentences. When I spoke to strangers in the dream, I kept my sentences simple and clear. Instead of trying to say everything perfectly, I focused on getting my point across. Where is the museum? Or can I have a drink? These short sentences were easy to understand and helped me feel more confident. This is another great technique for learning English. Start by practicing simple sentences. Then build up to longer ones as you feel more comfortable. You don't need to say everything perfectly. What's important is that you communicate and practice. If you're still learning, I've uploaded videos on my channel that help you practice short, useful sentences. You can use them in your everyday conversations and improve step by step. As I continued my journey in the dream, I realized that I wasn't as scared of English as I had been before. Yes, I still didn't understand everything, and yes, I still made mistakes. But each time I tried, I learned. Each conversation, no matter how small, was helping me grow. I began to understand that learning a language is like climbing a mountain. At first, it seems difficult, but with every step you take, you get closer to the top. Before I woke up from the dream, I reflected on everything I had learned. Persistence was the key. Even when things felt hard, I needed to keep trying. Just like a baby learning to walk, we need to stumble before we can run. English was no different. It didn't matter if I made mistakes. What mattered was that I kept going. So let me ask you, have you ever felt like giving up when learning English? How did you keep yourself motivated? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how you stay persistent in your learning journey. As I woke up from the dream, I felt a deep sense of motivation. I knew that learning English wasn't going to be easy, but I also knew that with patience and persistence, I could achieve my goal. The dream had taught me valuable lessons about not giving up and about celebrating the small wins along the way. Remember, I have videos on my channel that can help you practice asking questions and building short sentences. These techniques will help you feel more confident in your English conversations, so don't forget to check them out. Chapter 6: Waking Up from the Dream. As my dream came to an end, I found myself standing in the middle of a busy city, surrounded by people who were all speaking English. But this time, something felt different. I no longer felt overwhelmed or lost. Instead, I felt confident and excited. I realized that I had learned something important, not just in the dream, but about myself and my journey of learning English. Suddenly, the sounds of the city began to fade, and I felt myself waking up. Slowly, I opened my eyes and found myself back on the plane, flying through the clouds. The dream was over, but the lessons I had learned stayed with me. I felt inspired, motivated, and ready to keep improving my English. As I sat there, reflecting on the dream, I realized that learning English is not just about memorizing words or grammar rules. It's about building confidence step by step and celebrating the small victories along the way. I may not be fluent yet, but every word I learn, every sentence I speak, brings me closer to my goal. There's a famous quote by Tomasz Garrigue Masaryk that says, "The more languages you know, the more you are human." This quote reminded me that learning English is not just about communication. It's about opening up new opportunities, meeting new people, and understanding the world in a different way. Each time I learn a new word or phrase, I'm adding another piece to the puzzle. Before the plane landed, I promised myself that I would keep practicing. The dream had shown me that persistence is the key to success. I won't give up, no matter how difficult it feels at times. Just like in my dream, there will be moments when I don't understand everything, and that's okay. What matters is that I keep moving forward. I remembered the many techniques I had used in the dream, listening carefully, repeating phrases, shadowing, asking questions, and practicing short sentences. These techniques had helped me in the dream, and I knew they would help me in real life too. If you haven't tried these techniques yet, I encourage you to do so. And remember, I have videos on my channel that guide you through each of these methods. They're simple, easy to follow, and will help you improve step by step. As the plane began to descend, I felt ready to continue my English journey with a fresh perspective. I realized that learning English is not about being perfect. It's about progress. Each small win, no matter how small, is a step in the right direction. And with time, patience, and practice, fluency will come. What's your dream for learning English? Now, I want to ask you, what is your dream for learning English? Do you want to speak fluently, travel the world, get a better job? Whatever your dream is, share it in the comments below. By sharing, we can inspire each other and stay motivated. Before I end this final chapter, I want to remind you of the most important lesson I learned in the dream. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are part of learning, and they are proof that you're trying. Keep practicing, keep asking questions, and most importantly, don't give up. You're on a journey, and every step counts. I also encourage you to explore the videos I've uploaded on my channel. Whether it's practicing listening, speaking, or building vocabulary, there's something for everyone. These videos are designed to help you improve your English skills at your own pace. So, make sure to check them out and keep practicing. Final thought. As I stepped off the plane, I smiled, knowing that my dream of learning English was no longer just a dream. It was my reality. Every challenge, every word, every conversation was bringing me closer to becoming fluent. And the same is true for you. Keep going and never stop learning. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope my story has inspired you to continue your own path of learning English. Remember, progress takes time, but with patience and persistence, you will achieve your goals. Now it's your turn. What's the next step in your English learning journey? Share your thoughts in the comments and let's keep this conversation going. Together, we can achieve great things.